If it's too loud, turn it down. If it's too quiet, turn it up. So hi, welcome back to my home studio slash bedroom. I'm Benny Debray. I make songs, I'm a composer, I do film music as well, and I've been mixing my own audio for a long time. I'm still not where I would like to be, but I don't think anybody is who is in that field. So I still want to share some tips that I've learned along the way that have really helped me, because I think they might help you too in your workflow. These are sort of like niche tips. You might already be doing this, but you might not, because some of these I started doing kind of recently. Louder is not better. No. Out of two sounds, as humans, instinctively we have a bias. We're going to prefer the sound that is louder. And so maybe it's intentional on the part of plugin companies, maybe not, I don't know. But the truth is that usually when you put a plugin on your track, the default settings are gonna make your track louder. And so you're gonna think it sounds better, but you're not really hearing the difference between the two objectively, because there's this difference in level. So what I do is when I put a plugin on my track, I make sure, before I do anything else, to adjust the output level of the plugin to ensure that the track without the plugin and the track with the plugin is at the same loudness level. And once I have that, then I can objectively compare with plugin, without plugin, and with the different settings to see if I do prefer my track with the plugin or if I should just remove it and not use it. Alright, so let's take an example from a track that I already have. This session is Submarine from my EP. Oh, and the track sounds like this. You and I are aboard a submarine. Let's take the voice and let's add a compressor and see what happens. Okay, so without the compressor, it's turned off right now. It sounds like this. I never knew it tastes like a sour raspberry. Okay, so I've set the compressor so that it compresses a little bit of my voice, but I haven't touched the output gain. Lips in the abyss. See how there's a level difference? In my opinion, the compressor is not there to make your tracks louder. If you want to make your track louder, you do that at the end, at the limiting stage, at the mastering stage. But while you're working in the track, when I recorded my voice, I already had a level that I was happy with, so I don't want my compressor to mess up that level. So I'm gonna reduce the makeup gain until the track with compressor and the track without compressor are the same level. Finding your lips in the abyss. Finding your lips in the abyss. Finding your lips in the abyss. Cool, so now I've done that, I can objectively hear what the compressor is doing. Because as long as there's a difference in level, I'm gonna prefer the version that's louder. And so I'm not gonna be able to really tell the work that the compressor is doing, right? Bringing out those sounds that are lower in level. This also works for other effects, distortion, overdrive, pedals, whatever you want to put on there. I try to set the output level of the plugin so that it doesn't change the output level of the track. Cool, we got this guitar sound. Let's see what it sounds like without the effects. Now I add the effects that I have in there. I think it sounds better, but it doesn't sound louder. The sound is different, and I like the different sound, so I know for a fact that I'm going to keep those effects in there and that I'm making an objective decision. Okay, tip number 2, references. You need to use references. I've talked about this before in one of my videos, but the best way to learn how to make good sounding audio is to take examples of already good sounding audio and then listen to them critically and try to analyze what is going on in them that is not going on in your track. So this is a rescore that I made of a 1968 film, The Thomas Crown Affair. As the reference, I didn't use the music that was in the scene because a rescore is when you remove the music from a scene and then you come up with your own as a film scoring exercise. So I didn't want to be biased by the compositional elements that were in the original music, so I didn't listen to it. But I did use a track that is in another scene in the rest of the movie. This is the reference. Cool. And I use that just for the sound of the strings and for the balance between the strings and the woodwinds. My track sounds like this. You get the idea. Ooh, classical-ish music. The beauty of a reference is that you can take what you want and you can leave what you want. So this one, it sounds almost mono. The reference was so narrow. I hated that. So I did not use this in my track. My track is very much stereo. There's a lot of panning going on. But the string sound of the reference was a little bit sweeter than mine, which informed my decision to turn down some of the 4K region. As you can see, this is the EQ for my strings. I boosted the high end because I thought they were a bit dull and dark, and I lowered around the 3K, 4K region, and that made them resemble the reference a bit more. So what I would do is I would take a reference and really just put the audio file in your track so you can go back and forth between yours and the reference, and you can hear the differences in levels, and this can inform your decisions about anything. Either it's the stereo image, or it's the level of different instruments, or it's how much reverb there is on the snare, things like that. And once you start getting used to doing that, it's gonna train your ear to listen critically to music that you are experiencing. Because if you're a musician and you're just getting into sound, it may be that you haven't really started to listen critically to audio. So you might be listening critically to music. When you listen to a song that you like, you might be analyzing the lyrics or what's going on in the form structure or what's going on in the harmonies, but you might not be listening to the actual quality of the audio recording and the audio production, right? You might not be noticing, oh, how much reverb is there? How much compression is there on this voice? Is it far away? Is it close? Are there any effects going on? So things like that you learn to listen to, and by listening, you're going to passively learn how to mix audio. The first step is to understand what are the possibilities and what's going on in the things that you like, and so how you can replicate that depends on your ability to understand it. Okay, tip number 3, stop using level automation, or use level automation as sparingly as possible, and this is the reason why. When I started producing, I would always use the level automation to make my strings swell up and then swell down. This is great, you want to have some dynamic movement in your track, but what happens when you do this is that you relinquish control over the overall level of your track, because now the fader is automatically going to move as your volume automation goes up and down, and you won't be able to lower or raise the overall level of your track. Okay, so I've got a string swell here. I'm going to do what I would have done in the past, which is manually write in the level automation. Okay, I did this kind of randomly, but let's hear what it sounds like. Okay, so they go up and then they go down. Cool. But if I want all the strings to sound louder, I cannot do it. Right? Say I'm raising all the faders because I want them to sound louder now. No! It doesn't work because the track fader is now linked to your automation points. So there are solutions. Number 1, if you're working with audio files, you can work with clip gain. If you just need some parts to be quieter and some parts to be louder. Option number 2, if you're working with some plugins, some VSTs, virtual instruments, then oftentimes they will have some parameters that can be modulated. Here, these strings have an expression parameter and a modulation. I'm using expression. I click into the region. Pressing A is going to open up the automation for the region. So not for the track, just for the little bit that you've selected. And inside this, you can do more automation. And so here I've automated the expression. Here's what it sounds like. Right, so it's still doing that effect of going down, but I still have control over the track volume. The last solution, you can use volume automation, but then put your tracks inside a group. All right, so select your tracks, and then Command-Shift-G if you're on Logic. Boom, they're inside a group. And now you have control over all those tracks, even if they have volume automation in them. The fader from your group is going to be able to control the volume. Awesome! Okay, those are my 3 little tips for you on how to mix better. 1, louder is not better. 2, use references and learn from music that is already great, and learn to listen critically to what's going on in the mixes of the songs that you like. 3, don't use volume automation or as little as possible. But what that really means is just don't relinquish control over settings that you might need to change later on. And finally, don't beat yourself up if it doesn't sound the way that you want it to. First of all, no one's ever satisfied with their mixes, I think, even and especially professionals. And second of all, mixing audio is an art form and a skill that has to be developed over time, exactly like all the other musical skills that you may have, right? If you play an instrument, maybe it's taken you 15 years to learn how to play that instrument. If you write songs, maybe the first songs that you wrote were not as good as the songs you're writing now. It's all a learning process and a very long journey. I think you just have to have fun with it and see it as a creative part of your musical journey. That's it for me. I'll see you in the next video. Finding your lips in the abyss. I never knew it tastes like a sour raspberry.